What does this word mean? That's what we're here to discuss today. What is vitality? Because it's one thing to be healthy, but what does vitality actually mean to us? So the dictionary describes vitality as the state of being strong and active, energy. Vitality refers to a feeling of aliveness. In the physical sense, vitality refers to feeling healthy, capable, and energetic. Psychologically, vitality brings a sense that one's actions have meaning and have purpose. So inside of your brochure, you guys all had a vitality quiz. The pens don't work. The pens don't work. And the pens are not working. So the Sharpies are floating around. If you make sure you pass along those Sharpies to someone who maybe didn't get one and check out your vitality quiz. While you're filling that out, I'm going to go ahead and introduce our panel. We have Dr. Rachel Goldman with us tonight. She is a licensed psychologist, speaker, and consultant. She specializes in the mind-body connection, including stress reduction, disordered eating behaviors, and health behavior change. She's a clinical assistant professor at the Department of Psychiatry at NYU and has a private practice where she utilizes cognitive behavioral therapy. Most recently, you would have seen Dr. Rachel took part in a conversation with Oprah. Just going to say that again for the people. She was with her just last week and talked about weight, health, obesity, and body image. She also is seen in the media, including the New York Times, Time Magazine, CNN, USA Today, and Women's Health. Qualified. Rachel Goldman. Thank you. We also have Jaclyn London with us tonight. She's a registered dietitian, New York State certified nutritionist. She's an author, a podcast host, a CPG food and beverage consultant, and media spokesperson. She was the former head of WW, formerly known as Weight Watchers, for those OGs in here, and serves as a go-to nutrition expert on Today, Good Morning America, The Rachel Ray Show, The Dr. Oz Show, Inside Edition, and CBSN. She has extensive experience in clinical nutrition through her work at Mount Sinai Hospital and her nutrition counseling private practice. Awesome. Jaclyn, lucky tonight to have these professionals with us. I am Katia Pryce. I am the CEO and founder of DanceBody. This is like my living room, so I'm very happy you're all here. Some of you I see you here all the time, and some new faces. So excited to see you all. Thank you guys for coming out. Rain be damned. All right, let's dive right in because we got a lot to get to. So we're going to start over here. So Dr. Rachel, in the awesome pink blazer. From your perspective, what does vitality look like to you, and how do you create it for yourself?
Yes, okay. So vitality to me means living our life to the fullest, both to the fullest and being the healthiest that we can, whatever that means to us, but both mentally and physically. Right. So kind of encompassing everything, feeling strong, both mentally and physically as well, in our everyday life, being the best that we can be. Yeah. So that's what I would say it means to me. And what it looks like for me is participating, we're going to talk about, all of this more in detail, but participating in the health behaviors that make me feel the best for me. And there are kind of like the 5 core health behaviors that I tend to talk about a lot, so I'm going to mention those because I think they're really important when we think about our routines. So that's nutrition, what we're putting in our bodies, right, Jaclyn? It's our sleep, so important. People really minimize how much sleep is really important. It's our hydration, get your water, take some sips. It's our movement, right? And it's our stress management, how we deal with stressors and whatever life throws our way. And I think doing all of those on most days is what makes me feel my best. And that's actually what I work with my clients on, is building a routine around all of that to really feel our best.
As a psychologist, you use cognitive behavioral therapy with your clients. And for those of you who don't know who that is, can you just describe how that works with your clients?
Yeah, so CBT is another way that we talk about it. It is a type of psychotherapy, and what it is, the basic premise of it is this theory that our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all linked. And they are. Let's think about it for a minute. If you wake up in the morning and have a thought that, or let's actually back up. Say you wake up in the morning and have a headache, and you're like, oh, I don't feel well, I'm just going to lay in bed all day. How's that going to make you feel? Worse, right? But if you're like, you know what, I have a headache, I'm going to drink some water, I'm going to start my day, see how I feel, there's just a different tone to it, right? We feel differently. So it's so important to remember that our thoughts, emotions, and behaviors are all linked, because our thoughts can literally change the course of our day, can change the course of like just the moment like that, right? If I speak negatively towards myself, I'm going to feel bad, and then I'm going to act in ways that aren't going to help me feel my best. So CBT is that, and helping my clients understand that their thoughts can impact their emotions and their behaviors. And then oftentimes we can tweak the behavior, we can tweak the thought, and then kind of the rest follow.
I love that. Let's do that all day.
Yes, all day, every day, CBT. I'm here for that.
Jaclyn, same question. From your perspective, what does vitality look like, and how do you create that for yourself?
Okay, so I think, and perfect answer from Dr. Rachel as always, but I feel like what is so important that you just mentioned, Rachel, is how it's not just about physical health, it's also about mental health, right? And when I am working with clients on this, when I'm speaking about it, I find myself always coming back to the same phrase, which is what do you need to do to help you, that's going to help you feel more like yourself. And I feel like there's just so many things around us that kind of take away from us feeling like ourselves, right? Like getting back to remembering what it means to eat in a way that feels aligned with our values, what it means to live in a way that feels like we're doing things that are not just things that we're obliged to do, but things that we actually want to do, things that we personally need to do for the sake of our mental and physical well-being. And in my own life, I feel like I'm constantly asking myself that, right? Like, what would make me feel more like myself right now? And also, I think we have a tendency, especially in the world of nutrition, to think about either like kind of these two black and white thoughts, which is, what do I need right now? And then there's this other side of nutrition and food and eating patterns that is, what am I going to need? Like, what is going to decrease or increase my risk of chronic disease? And actually, it's really, neither of those things is that helpful in the moment. In the moment, what we really want to be thinking about is, what am I doing 2 hours from now? Like, what do I have the rest of the day today? How does my schedule really inform how I'm going to act right now and what I need to do to feel more like myself? So I find myself always coming back to, what do I need to feel more like myself? And also, how does my schedule inform my strategy for the day?
It's so hard to think about in the grind and the daily to-dos. It's just reconnecting with yourself and what would make me feel good right now. It's such a simple question, but it's actually really ridiculously hard most days. But we're going to get into that. And as a nutritionist, people must ask you all the time, what should I be eating? What do I want to eat? And I am no different. So can you give me like the 30,000-foot view of like, what should we be eating?
Okay, so at the core of everything that I am going to say tonight, and that everything that I've written about in this book, everything that is anywhere of me, is Mediterranean for real life. And I say that because honestly, the core principles of the Mediterranean diet are the gold standard in nutrition science. But in reality, when people read about Mediterranean, like everyone's like, are you kidding? Like, I wish I could live on a Greek island and, salmon and have the bread.
It would certainly help.
Right, exactly. Like, it would really help. So that's why I say it's the core tenets of a Mediterranean diet, which is more veggies and fruit more often. That's really like the number one thing for most people that I find myself talking about most often, most frequently. But it's also about, the dietary pattern, making these choices within this kind of more holistic Mediterranean dietary pattern that are right for you in the context of your everyday lifestyle. So I always rely on these kind of like three, I call them the 3 T's. It's type of meal, so what meal are you going into, and what are the foods that you like to eat at those meals, and then what types of nutrients do you want to have at those meals. And the nutrients that I'm always talking about are protein and fiber at each meal and snack throughout the day. So that would be the first T, type. The second would be timing. So consistency, and when I say this, I just feel like it sounds so basic that it almost feels like, why are you talking about it? But we're not doing it. None of us are. I mean, including me. I literally said to Dr. Rachel before we got, I was like, I didn't have a snack. Like, what's wrong with it? But consistency is critical for all of us, myself included, although, I'm not to like pick myself up over making a mistake. If I pass out, I don't have to try it. Exactly. So consistency, so eating every 3 to 4 hours is honestly critical. I found this to be such a game changer when working with so many people. And then the third is tools. So what are the things that you really need to keep these health promoting patterns that you've established for yourself, type and timing, in place? What are the things like, and I refer back to the schedule being such a game changer for so many people, is working within the context of your reality, where you spend the most time, is ultimately what dictates your food decisions. So thinking about it through that lens is what's most important.
Like it. I mean, we could just do a whole panel on just that. I mean, am I wrong? Okay, let's just move on. We're gonna completely move on. All right, women's health can be an overwhelming topic. Obviously, May is Women's Health Month. It's also Mental Health Awareness Month. We get all the awarenesses, all the healths this month. It's a very important month, which is why we're doing this. So it can be overwhelming in terms of looking at the list of what should I be doing, what should I not be doing. What are some of the biggest myths out there? So what should we definitely not spend our time doing, Dr. Rachel?
That's a big one. So first, I love that you said the should, because I was going to say what we shouldn't be doing is thinking that we should be doing things that aren't good for us. And that, I think, goes back to this idea of the comparison, and that's what I was going to say. What I want you to do is to stop comparing yourself to what you see on social media, to what you see other people are doing, to even comparing yourself to who you were 2 years ago. Because the comparison really gets us down this negative spiral rabbit hole. And all of us are different. We all have different needs. And just because so-and-so is doing this, it may not be right for you. If you're speaking to an expert dietitian and she tells you this is the recommendation, I'm not going to say should because I hate that word, that's different. But I think if we can just stop comparing ourselves to all of the chatter, all the noise that's out there, all of these, this diet, that diet, just turn inward and think about what's best for us and consult with the experts and consult with your health team to help you figure that out.
Right, so don't listen to social media, and actually what would be helpful is what you're saying is getting more of a customized opinion. Like, book yourself a one-on-one session with someone. Actually have someone look at what is your routine, what nutrients might you be lacking. Go get your blood work done, right? Then you know what supplements you need. Don't just buy another $500 supplement because it's being boosted and paid for by an influencer. I'm so against that.
Yes.
It's horrible, and it's everywhere. It's pervasive, and what I hate about it is it's women doing it to women. And that is the most insidious part about it. That's what gets me really burned up. It's like, we're doing it to each other. Like, this is insane. What are we doing? Like, we should be encouraging our sisters to go get the help that you need. If you feel like you're lacking, go find what you need and turn inward. It's really that intuition that's the most important.
And I want to just add one more thing. If what you're doing right now is working, don't be influenced. So many things pop up and everyone asks me, do you do this? I'm like, no, I don't. What I'm doing is working. I'm not going to change it because so-and-so said this supplement is great. So think about that too. If what you're doing is working, feel good, stick to it. Yes. It is working for a reason.
I'm also going to add to that, I also, having gone through pregnancy just recently, and we were also, all three of us, right? Which is crazy. So how old are your kids?
I have a 4-month-old. Wow.
You have a 4-month-old? Jaclyn London, Oh my gosh. And then you have a 10-month-old.
And a 5-year-old.
How do we do anything? How does anything get done? But what I was going to say was through pregnancy, you end up weeding a lot of things out. You end up taking things out of your routine because you're like, all this excess, all these toxins, all these things, and you find yourself doing better with less. And then I'm going to turn to you and ask you the same question. The myths, what's out there? Because I feel like what I wanted to do is just peel back and do a lot less. Is that true? What is a myth, a real one that you're getting asked all the time?
Okay, so this is going to sound like a contradiction, but it's not. First of all, I love this. I feel like I say another thing I find myself saying a lot is do less. We're all doing too much all the time, and we need to kind of scale it back and keep it simple. But on the flip side of that, and specific to nutrition, and especially specific to nutrition that you see online, is to resist the urge to cut something out of your diet because that one thing in isolation of everything else that you do is going to make or break your health when we know that that's just simply not the case. I mean, there's just no research anywhere that says that. I've never seen it work for anyone in practice. Most of the time I see clients, patients, when they come to me after they've tried every other single, detox or whatever it is, some sort of really restrictive plan. So anything, and I think probably some of the stuff that exists online can seem like it's not restrictive, but it is. So I often give the kind of question back to people, if you don't feel like you can do this for the rest of your life, then it's not for you. And you don't want something that you have to change your life for. You want the way that you eat to fit within your life, right? It shouldn't be that you're saying, I take that job making pasta in Italy because I'm on a ketogenic diet, right? Like it shouldn't be like that.
So sad.
It would be so sad. I do want to take that job. I want to take that job.
We all want that job. Okay, so on the heels of that, what's a trending topic that keeps coming up with your clients right now? What are people most focused on changing or improving? What is the trending topic of the day?
So for me, it tends to be about body image, right? Like how people feel about themselves in their body, and this idea of wanting to change their body when we're living in the body that we're living in, right? And working more towards body acceptance is what I do with my clients.
I like that. Not body positivity, body acceptance. I like that better.
It's horrible. It's like, I compare it to toxic positivity. It's the same thing as toxic positivity. It is toxic.
Yeah.
Just can I go off for just a second? So this is my belief. Tell me if you agree or not.
Okay.
But it's okay if you don't. So there's not much in life that is so all or nothing, right? So why should we put this expectation and this pressure on ourselves to wake up and love our bodies every single day and every part of our body? It is just not realistic. So if it's not realistic, what we're doing is putting ourselves up this added pressure, and we're setting ourselves up for failure. As opposed to, you know what, I wake up today not feeling so great about my body. Maybe I'm a little bloated. Maybe I have to go to the bathroom. Who knows? And that's okay. But it's what we do with that, right? I'm not saying that we need to hate our bodies. I disagree with that. But it's about moving towards body acceptance and thinking about the function that our body serves, which is more about what's called body neutrality. Like all three of us had babies recently. Like our bodies are pretty amazing, right? All of us are here right now. If you walked here, I don't know how you got here, but our legs help us dance and do things, right? So thinking about the function that our body is serving us is better than expecting to just love every part of our body every single day, because nobody does. Sorry to
I remember the day, because I always hated my legs. I always had athletic legs, always. And the skinny jean trend was a trend for a long time. People wearing baggy wide legs now, but we worked for a long time. And that was really tough. And I just remember the day, and I said it to myself, and I was just like, okay, my legs are strong. I work with my body. I'm so lucky and so blessed. Some people can't do that. Like, I just need to accept it for what it is. And honestly, from that moment on, like, I flipped the script in my mind to your CBT point. And it was just that one small thing, but that one small thing really bothered me for a really long time. And I really spent a lot of painful years trying to fix something that was not, it's not fixable because it's not actually a fucking problem. You know, so I think the body acceptance is an awesome note. I'm going to go back to trending topics. What are the trending topics your clients are talking about? What do they want to do?
So into that answer, I kind of like lost myself. I just feel like this is such an important point. Like body neutrality is so important because literally no 2 days are the same, and also no, we never feel the same way about ourselves on one given hour to the next. You know what I mean? It really is a ridiculous point. On that point, I think that's probably something that comes up most often with so many people that I see, is the idea of this expectation on ourselves. Is it's like a lot of us are doing this thing where we have an expectation of ourselves that is more closely aligned to someone that we used to be, or probably never were, but like maybe were for 1 hour of the day one time. like this kind of expectation that we're putting on ourselves, it's like we often, and I hate saying this, but I really do see it most often, is that it's mostly women. Like we're doing this to ourselves. Like we are thinking that we have to be held to some sort of standard that maybe we've done a full digital detox, which is pretty much the only detox I really recommend. But it really winds up being that we are comparing ourselves to ourselves, and it's perhaps a version of us that does not exist. So it's more like, what are we doing right now? What do we need 2 hours from now? And how are we thinking about what is on the rest of the schedule for this week, this month, this year?
Totally. I think, on the heels of that, being a 40-year-old woman who had the same body for the most part for 40 years, and then having to go through a pregnancy, being lucky enough to, right? And like, people are like, but you have life, you're creating life. I'm like, yeah, but it's really hard for me mentally. And it just was. And I really did struggle and continue to struggle to a point, and it brought back a lot of body image stuff for me. And it's just like, I know I'm not that person anymore, but it's not that easy. It's not, you can't just flip it off. You really can't. It's really hard to not look back at photos of yourselves and be like, me and Caitlin had babies at the exact same time. What do? We're looking, look at this old photo of me. It's like, I know it's bad behavior, but misery loves company. I mean, like, sometimes you just gotta throw it in fine. Anyways, we're gonna move on, and I'm not gonna get into all the skeletons in my closet. All right, Jaclyn, we're back. So you would have seen in your quiz, you believe with starting the day with breakfast, and I want to know why. This was actually something I personally changed. I was a coffee slut. Coffee first. Coffee comes first for me. It always did, it always had, and that change in pregnancy was the hardest thing for me to change. I had to change to breakfast first. Now, I've heard people say you should always do breakfast before coffee, you should do coffee first, like there's conflicting reports. So you believe in breakfast first. Is this pre-coffee? I want to know all the things.
Before, during, after. I say keep your coffee, have it before, have it during, have it after. I'm a very big fan of coffee based on existing research and because I just think it's delicious and why shouldn't we have what we love? Why we don't? I mean, obviously pregnancy would be an exception to that, but okay. I'm a huge champion of breakfast and it's because I honestly, and I have seen this so much in practice, the second people start focusing on making this one meal bigger, more satisfying, and more energizing for you, like eating the foods that you actually really want and crave in the morning, but also with a kind of like eye towards what's going to combine protein and fiber, as I mentioned before. This is a game changer for people. It's increased energy. For those who are coming to me for weight loss, it's easily one of the biggest things that it creates a little bit of like a difficult mental shift for a lot of people, because why are we not eating so much breakfast in the first place? We're on this pattern where we think we need to like cut back all day, and I think a lot of that is also very much ingrained. It's a little bit of a socialized behavior. Like we think that we need to like restrict all day in order to eat more later on.
So true. Yeah.
And it just doesn't work that way. You wind up actually eating less overall, and it is the number one solve for me in practice when someone comes to me and says, I can't stop eating late at night.
The nighttime eater. I used to be a big nighttime eater. This is my confession. But breakfast did solve that for me, so I love hearing that.
Can I jump in?
Yes, I want you to. Yeah.
So, and also when you're restricting or when you're not eating breakfast, I'm sure everybody's heard the term food noise lately. So, food noise. So, if you're restricting, I'm just gonna.
I was a restrictor. I had one.
So, if you're restricting, or how? Okay, maybe nobody knows. Maybe you guys don't know what food noise is. Okay, food noise has been in the news a lot lately because of. I know we're not going to go here, but because of the anti-obesity medications, GLP-1s, from people calling weight loss medications also. Food noise is that constant noise, that constant chatter. When am I going to eat next? Did I eat enough? When's breakfast? When's lunch? When can I have a snack? Just all of that noise. So that noise is actually becomes quieter when you don't restrict. So I wanted to say that too, that if you're not eating breakfast, the noise is, when can I eat? When can I eat? What am I going to eat? Is this enough? Did I eat too much? Did I eat too little? But it becomes a little quieter if you're eating regularly throughout the day. So the mental piece is also there with eating more regularly throughout the day. And obviously you can concentrate more, you're going to be more mindful, lots of things, energy, etc. Everything Jaclyn said. But I just wanted to add that because the mental piece is really big.
That's a really important part. As a former restrictive eater and over-exerciser, I put my body and mind through total hell. And I just knew, like before every photo shoot, there was always like, I had a regimen, I had a thing, and then I ended up passing out at a photo shoot, going to the hospital. And do you think that stopped me? It didn't. It didn't stop me. Like I kept doing it because it worked and I got the skinny result that I wanted, but my brain really suffered because of that. All right, moving on. I want to talk about protein because I've recently become passionate about protein. So can you tell me about protein? Because I've been forcing everyone to have protein after their workouts because I can only do so much in an hour of a workout and we can get a lot done. But if your muscles don't synthesize, recover, and rebuild, it's kind of a worthless workout if you're not adding your protein in, certainly within your post-workout. So I want to know what your shtick is on protein. Give it to us for real.
Okay, so the reason why I say protein and fiber is so fiber is the digestible component of carbohydrates, right? I think we're all pretty familiar with fiber. Fiber is found in veggies and fruit, 100% whole grains, pulses, Legos, things like that. The reason why I say that is in part because of the overall, for everyone, for Jen Pop. It's literally just the way that we keep our energy up. For those of us who are working out, who are active, it is what we need carbohydrates in order to help deliver that protein. So protein on its own, and I'm seeing this all over the internet, right? Like this is like such a social media thing, is that people shoveling protein. Like I need to get 100 grams of protein. I need to get 200 grams of protein. This is just, you don't need to. You probably don't need to.
Shoveling protein.
More important is that combination because your protein can't really get to your
it has to be a balanced combination.
Exactly. So I really the we are either overthinking it, or we're often, a lot of us are just kind of we're falling victim to the lack of planning on our part. Like me, right before this event, had not packing a snack. The idea is that like you want to be able to have snacks that combine these two things for the sake of your overall feelings of satiety, energy, and not going into your next meal feeling totally ravenous. But after a workout, the combination of those two nutrients is so important for muscle building, but also for making sure that you keep that energy up. And I would be remiss not to mention hydration, which also anytime you increase protein, you need to increase water.
Great tips. Are we writing these down? That's excellent. Okay. Okay, Rachel, I want to talk to you about your famed coping toolbox. I want to know what it is, how we can make one, where we can buy it.
I wish I could sell them. What a great idea. So I often talk about coping toolboxes because life happens. Stress happens. We know that, right? Stress is all around us. But it's how we perceive situations and it's how we manage that stress. And I recommend that we all have our own unique coping toolbox readily available to us. Of course, it's not literally a toolbox that I'm going to hand you.
Kind of cool.
That would be amazing, right? But it is a coping toolbox that you have, that you've created for yourself that works for you. My recommendation is to have at least 3 tools in your toolbox. The reason for 3 is because if you are stressed right now, and all of a sudden you feel stressed, and if your coping tool is to dance, maybe you're going to get up and start dancing, but maybe not, right? So what would you do? Maybe another tool, maybe a tool is I'm going to call you when I'm stressed, but what if you're busy teaching in a class and you're not available? So having more than one is really important, and I like to have 3 options. At least one of those 3 should be something internal that we don't need anybody else for or anything else for. What I mean by that is like a relaxation technique, a breathing exercise, a mindfulness technique, a meditation exercise.
I love that. Do you have a breathing technique? Because that would be a good one, because I could do that right now.
We could do it. Do we all want to?
Yeah, we want to try it. Yeah.
Okay. So one of the ones that I love teaching to everybody is called diaphragmatic breathing. It is another term for belly breathing. I would recommend that you put both feet flat on the floor. When I teach it, I do recommend that we put one hand here and one hand on our belly. But when you're doing this in the moment, like in a situation like this, when you're stressed, or if I'm standing on a stage, I'm not going to be doing this, obviously. Putting your hands here.
Yeah.
The reason I have you put your hands here is to know, are you breathing more through your chest or through your belly? Many people think, if I were to just say, you don't have to do it, but if I were to just say take a deep breath, many people would do this. Not helpful, right? Actually, that is keeping everything very tense and it's going to make you more stressed. So breathing through our belly is going to relax us physiologically. So I want you to just have your hands here as you're doing it to see for yourself if you're breathing more through your chest or through your belly. I'm going to tell you what to do, but I don't want you to do it yet. In a moment, I'm going to have you breathe in through your nose as your belly is expanding. Imagine a balloon in your belly expanding. Then you're going to exhale through your mouth as your belly goes back in. It's a little bit like, what am I doing then? I know. So you have to practice. But let's do it together. Oh my God. I'm like, let's do this. Okay. So breathe in through your nose. Belly expands. Exhale. Belly goes back in. Inhale, let's do a few. Inhale. Watch my belly really expand. Ready? You have to push it a little bit.
And I can go back in.
Which I know is not my fault.
That's the million-dollar question.
Right. And talking about body image, I know this is hard for some people.
Yes.
Because you really it's very
I spent my life sucking it in. Now you want me to push it.
I know, right? Inhale through your nose as your belly expands. And exhale. Take one more. Inhale. And exhale.
It's almost like you're contracting your stomach to push it out. Because I have to do it. It's like
Yes.
it's consciously do it.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's
Not going in.
kind of the opposite of what you think.
Okay.
But with practice, it's going to work. And that's the key. So your coping tools can't be like today, I don't want you to be like, diaphragmatic breathing is in my toolbox. Because if you've never done it before and you haven't practiced, you're going to be like, what am I supposed to do? When you're stressed, it's not going to help. Right. So what I say is our stress management coping tools are actually the same things that we use as self-care practices, but we use them at different times. So running, for instance, is one of my coping tools. I ran today, not because I was stressed, but because it's my preventative, my self-care. I love it.
Interesting. Okay,
But when I need it, I can also maybe put on my running shoes and just go out for a quick run for stress management.
Got it.
But we want to practice it to the point that we know what we're doing. So right before I step on stage, for instance, I do one breath, one, and right there, physiologically, my body comes down.
Totally.
So we have to practice that.
Yeah. Okay, that was awesome. Worth it. Coming out in the rain, worth it. Okay. Now, okay, let's move on. The difference from going from living in your 20s to living in your 50s and beyond is obviously a massive shift, decade to decade. I think every woman kind of reevaluates. A lot of women do. So what are some ways to evaluate and re-examine where we're currently at and where we want to be in the future? I'm going to pitch this to you first, Jaclyn.
Okay, so I would start by taking a look at what your, and let's just use food because that would be my area of expertise, but like where are you when you're making decisions about food? And I come back to that because that's ultimately the key to knowing and feeling confident about what your food decisions are going to be. You can't try to make food decisions for someone that does not exist. And when we've been through multiple transitions in our lives, when we're older, we're wiser, we've kind of like earned our stripes a little bit, you kind of forget that you need to reevaluate anytime your life changes, even in small ways, right? Like if you change jobs, it's always a really good opportunity to evaluate where you are when you're making decisions about food that can ultimately help support your overall health promoting goals. And I know it sounds kind of like, why am I thinking about food? But I have a million things to think about when I'm starting a job, right? Like it sounds like that. But ultimately food, we have to remember, gives us energy to live, right? Like we need it. So it is fundamental and integral to everything else that we do. So thinking about those decision-making places, where are you? What else is happening when you're making those decisions? What else is going on for you both internally and externally? What other things do you have to think about while these things are going on? Those are really important because back to actually what Rachel just said is like once you have the kind of idea of what it's going to look like for you, the ability to be flexible and to stay flexible with any plan is only there because everything will change. Like we can only expect that things will change. It's like the only constant in life, right? So knowing how you're going to deal once you get there and having some options for yourself once you're there can also be so effective, so helpful, and particularly as it relates to food, knowing what you're going to do, knowing how you're going to fuel yourself when your circumstances change or when things come out of left field is key.
Nice. Okay. I'm going to just same question to you. How do you reevaluate and re-examine where you're at currently and where you want to be?
So I love everything Jaclyn said, of course. And I want to add that first, I think we have to accept the fact that things are going to change, right? Things are going to change, and it's hard to accept that, right? We want to think back to, well, it worked when I was in my 20s. Why isn't it working now?
Right.
Well, it's not going to work because life is moving and changing and evolving just as we are. So I always say, similar to what Jaclyn just said, we have to take a pause and check in with ourselves. We are the best experts of ourselves. Although I'm an expert in my area, you're an expert in your area, you're an expert in your area, you're an expert in you. And you have to take the moment to check in and be like, what is working for me right now and what is no longer working? Some things are not going to work anymore. And that's okay. That's where that flexibility has to come in and be okay with that. But then it's like, okay, I have my routine. The core behaviors that I mentioned at the beginning are still going to be there, but they're going to look different. And that's okay. It can look different every day because our schedules can change. But it's going to look different as we get older and wiser and all those other things. But we have to accept that and remind ourselves that it's okay that I'm changing because the world around me is changing. I'm evolving. But we have to take that moment to check in and be like, how can I reassess this and what can I do differently to work better for me now that XYZ is in my life, for instance.
Right, 100%. I mean, like, you know, obviously turning 40 now, getting into my 40s, this is like a whole new bag. I'm like, are those great years? Thank you. It's a lot coming at you all of a sudden.
I noticed a few lately. When I had my daughter, I was like, oh my God, there's a few more out.
Yeah, well, they supplement you by that. You know that. It's obvious. That's science. So, I'm just going to go to the next question. There's a nice slide for that. Okay. Here we are. How are we doing on time? Am I okay, team? 6:55. Oh, look at that. Hi, Mary. Okay. All right. I recently read a study about movement compared to SSRIs, which are selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Thank you. Whew. And which are basically medication, right? Medication that you're on for depression. I would think, or anxiety or whatever. So I saw this study, and in every group and trial they tried, movement was such a main factor against the SSRIs. Movement, any modality of movement, yoga, running, but in fact, dance was the top modality out of all of these modalities of movement to stave against depression. I'm like, holy crap! I'm like, why is this not front page news on every outlet? Because it doesn't make money. Maybe it should. But anyway, so it's so crazy that a study like that is not being wildly publicized, and it's up to us to get it out there and get it known. So I just wanted to know, have you seen movement, specifically movement, affect your clients? And I'm going to start with Jaclyn. Like, I know obviously food is such a huge part, like the majority, right? Let's just be real, like that's the majority of what makes us up. But movement when paired with food, have you seen your clients have success with that? How is it different from people who do move, who don't move?
I think it's critical. I really do. I think it's critical. And the interesting thing that people are so often surprised by is that exercise is not what is going to make or break weight loss. People don't talk about that.
Do not talk about that.
It's really about how you feel, like everything, all the other myriad benefits that movement gives you. But it's also about the habit, the behavior, right? Like once movement becomes a habit, it becomes actually kind of a tough habit to break, right? Like it can be, once you really have it, right? Like it becomes something that you really look forward to doing, and also it for anyone who is probably thinking, well, I still don't really look forward to it. Right. It can become something that you look forward to doing. And I give this example. I wrote about this former client in the book actually, who was traveling all the time for work. Like he was a consultant and he was really struggling to make time for movement. When you find a way to essentially pair that movement with something else that you either need to do or want to do, I'm going to say want to do because need to do is a little bit of a drag, right? Like there's the whole thing. Like if you're not really in the mood for it, you're like, this whole thing is a bummer. But want to do, like something that you really look forward to doing, like this client wound up doing steps, getting an Apple Watch, doing steps around this like enormous hotel complex when he was on the project in Boston while he was FaceTiming his family because he was spending so much time away. Once you can bring the like humanity into movement and what else you need in your life in order to again feel more like yourself, that's where the real magic happens. And that's why it makes total sense to me that this study was done about dance is because it gives people so much joy, right? Like and ultimately like once you have it, once you get it and you can really feel it and you want to prioritize it and make more time for that, you do it.
100%. I mean, obviously the community has a huge effect on that. Being around other people, oxytocin, there you go, that's a happy chemical. That rush after the workout, endorphins, there you go, that's a happy chemical. All those chemicals that are synthetically made, you actually can create them naturally through movement. And it's astounding to me that is not prescribed more often.
Yeah, there's something years ago that was passed around social media that said something like movement is the most underutilized, it either said anxiety or depression, but I'm going to say both, anxiety or depression medication. And I'm not going to say that it cures, I'm not going to say that, but it is an option, right? It is a tool. I'm going to use that word instead. It's a tool. And I actually see, so all of my clients, I take a very holistic approach to health, to psychology with all of my clients. So we talk about all of these things, including movement. I have clients that literally, I'm not saying that I cure their anxiety, but they are managing their anxiety because of movement. Yes, and it's so true, and I probably am too, to be honest. I walk through the mirror, right? Exactly. Now, is there a time and place for medication? Absolutely. I'm not minimizing that at all. Is there a time and place for therapy? Absolutely. She was going to meet for therapy, or still is, for therapy, and I prescribe movement.
I love that.
Yes, and literally, there are days that in a session, she will say to me, this one, I'm thinking of one patient in particular, one client, she's like, I was really anxious on Sunday, and I don't know why, and then literally, boom, she's like, oh, I didn't do my workout that morning, So now we think about it, we talk about anticipating these difficult situations, like maybe when she's home for holidays, tend to be difficult for her, and I'm like, okay, let's plan, how are you going to get your workout in, how are you going to get your movement in when you're home, because we know that's even more anxiety provoking for you. Right. So it is amazing, and I see it all the time with my clients. Yeah. And it becomes, like Jaclyn was saying, the key is to have it become a habit, right? Exercise, I actually don't even like to use the term exercise because that's overwhelming for a lot of people. Movement, physical activity, right? But finding a way, and I call it making it work, right? The patient that you described, to me, is making it work. figured out a way to make it work in his life, right? Like taking that baby stroller, going on a walk if you gotta go, put the baby in the carrier, go on the walk, do whatever you have to do, but move. Just move your body, find ways to do it, and you will notice an improvement in your mood, a decrease in anxiety if you have anxiety, or even just stress overall. But it's amazing.
Yeah, big time. It's a pill, it should be taken.
Yeah, I agree.
Movement, you gotta do it.
I think dancing moves like create motions through the body too, like when you're
Yes.
moving.
Dance therapy exists for a reason, and it totally does. It's just art therapy, music therapy, like all these things. It's hitting your primal reward centers. That's what it's doing. So as humans, we're attracted to movement, we're attracted to music. We get rewarded by doing it. So you're actually hardwired to like to do it. It's just that societally, exercise has become such a laden with guilt. I'm not doing enough, I didn't do enough, my workout wasn't good enough. This is where we come up with, all right, 1% of something is 100% better than nothing. Just do something. But again, I do think a lot of that rhetoric is like, it's women driven, and it's unfortunate because it's like, here's all the things I did today. It's like, it doesn't matter what you did today, it matters what I do today. And I think that's really the approach we all have to take.
And to even kind of flip that script, many people think of all the things they didn't do. Well, let's see some things we did do, right? Oh, I didn't work out today. Well, but I did X, Y, Z, and I walked around town or something like that.
Right. Today, I did not work out.
And that's okay.
And it's okay. I'm gonna survive, and it's gonna be okay.
And you're on TV.
I was a little busy. But the former me, I would have really struggled with that. I was a former excessive exerciser. I had built my life around it. I am not mad about it. It is my GGG. It's my God-given gift. This is what I want to be doing, and that's what I want to do. But I think originally there was a little piece of me, I'm like, I'll just do this all the time. It started with in a weird place, but it's ending in such a good place, and it's morphed with me, which I feel really, really proud of. So, okay, I'm gonna open up the floor, because I know you guys have a lot of questions, and I think let's get personal, let's get deep, give us the goods, we wanna hear it. If you're at home, if you wanna enter a question into your chat, just go ahead and do it. We have people that are listening to you, good job, Emily. And let's just take a second to say, DanceBody team, you are amazing. Courtney's on me. We got Maddie's here still, after all these years. All right, questions. Open it up. Courtney will come to you with a microphone. She will dance it over to you. I know you have them. These are the experts. You don't have to pay for a session with them, so you might as well ask now.
It's more common than
Good.
anything. I'm in the mental health space as well. I'm a coach and a psychologist. And what I've learned is that what vitality meant to me in 20 is very different than what it means to me now approaching 60. And having and everything that you said really, really resonated with me, and I kind of wish that this information had been around when I was younger, because so much of the work that I've done, I think, has been self-watering. There hasn't been a lot of this stuff available, and I'm so grateful that the social media onslaught, I'm less porous to it, I'm less susceptible to it because of my age and because of, I'm in menopause and I've been through all of my girls. It's going to be okay.
You make menopause look good, by the way.
But, I think that I feel so many of my clients all of them are younger than me, and I feel their fragility around the bombardment of that they're, the itty bitty shooty committee in your head, right? That it's not my math and cross, I'm sure you know. But it's the work to quiet the itty bitty shooty committee, to make that chatter work for you, as opposed to have the chatter overwhelm you. And I'm grateful that you guys are doing this. Keep doing it, girls. Listen, and have a and thank you.
Talking to the mic so they can hear you.
So you spoke about, so I work out nonstop, but I don't, my coffee is my breakfast. Partially because of the whole intermittent fasting, I got on that, so typically I try not to eat from like 7 o'clock at night until like 2 or 3 o'clock the next day. So it's a long time. I mean, I don't do it every day, but that's my habit. I wake up, I have coffee, I work out, I dance, you know. But what is, so, and I'm sure a lot of people here have also been on the intermittent fasting, I don't want to call it a trend. So in response to that, the eating breakfast versus the intermittent fasting, can you talk about that a little bit?
So glad that you said this, because every time I talk about breakfast, there is going to be someone who's like, I'm intermittent fasting, and I'm so here for it. I'm not here for intermittent fasting, but that doesn't mean that it's not working for you, right? And I say this, I feel like I always have to say this a times 1,000. If something is working for you, don't listen, don't change it. You're not like, right? Like if it's working for you, it's working for you.
It's more just like a lifestyle.
Exactly. Like if it works for you, then you keep it. I'm not such a crazy fan of it for a couple of reasons. The first is that we really don't actually have a good research on it. We've had some rodent studies. We had like a couple human studies, and all of them kind of come up with similar results. So when I say, like, when I started talking about like Mediterranean dietary patterns, like I'm looking at the large, like the kind of like body of evidence that exists on this topic about Mediterranean diet and chronic disease, Mediterranean diet and weight management, Mediterranean diet and depression and anxiety, like a lot of these other factors that play in. We just aren't there yet with intermittent fasting. So like that's kind of like one thing to just think about. The other thing is that for so many people, when I'm working with someone who's saying that it's not working for them, my sense is that a lot of us feel like okay, it may be working for a number of different like behavioral reasons, and this is like the one real positive that I love about the practice. Is if it's forcing you to shut the kitchen down at nighttime and go to bed and get more sleep. Like when I see people who get more sleep because they started fasting, I feel like that's the one real positive that is not directly related to the process of fasting, but it is the behavior that comes along with it. So as long as it's not feeling restrictive to you, like as long as it feels like it's something that's actually working for you, then keep it. If someone comes to me and asks, should I start doing it, that's when I'm like, I'm not a fan. And I say it for those reasons, because a lot of us are feeling like, we want to feel like we're more in control of our own hunger and satiety cues. We want to feel like we're more energized throughout the day. We want to feel less like we're diving headfirst into the pantry and like coming up for air like elbow deep after like an hour, right? Like it's like a rage blackout. But like a lot of that can start with building a bigger, more satisfying breakfast, which is sort of like the counter that I would just give to you. Is if you felt like that was happening for you, that would be one thing I want to add back in.
I felt like as I aged, so now I'm in my 30s, I remember like now as I'm starting to age, I do find myself like craving breakfast more. So I'm starting that, but now I'm like, wait a second, this is perfect time. So I'm like, wait, should I be? If intermittent fasting's been working, I love how, I'm not a mom yet, everyone, so many people are moms. And even so, aren't you guys not making time for yourselves because you have to feed the little ones first? So yeah, that's my thought. Thank you for.
You're not going to be able to not eat breakfast when you just heads up. That's what started off my breakfast. I had to eat it. I had cereal next to the bed. It was horrible.
I did that too, next to the bed.
Starving.
Yeah.
I'd wake up, eat a little bit, and go back. I miss those days. I'm still here. All right, does anyone else think about it? There she is. Yes, right there. Courtney, dance over. Dun, 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 dun. Come on, give us a high.
I'm always going to dance. This is my career.
Hi everyone, happy Mental Health Awareness Month. Thank you so much for doing this. This was so informative, and I've actually been to DanceBody before. I'm a content creator, so that's how I made my way here, and I could see my mood being like on another level the entire day, so I can vouch for the fact that it works. Another thing that I was recalling as you guys were speaking is that movie dialogue from Legally Blonde, which is endorphins when you exercise and gives you endorphins, and endorphins make you happy.
We all like it.
So I love this entire thing. Now I'm a content creator and I make content about healing, happiness, and how to just live a holistic and like wellness-oriented life. A lot of people open up to me, especially when they're going through their eating disorder recovery, and they open up and they try to, like, they're vulnerable and they tell me that while navigating recovery, they're a little scared to kind of start eating again because they've restricted for so long and now their metabolism is plateaued and all of that. So how, as a psychologist and a dietitian, do you recommend people to kind of embrace recovery while obviously not gaining a bunch of weight, because that's the first reason that they restricted themselves.
I'm going to jump in first with one thing, but then maybe we can just have a dialogue about it. First, thank you for that and for being here. And I want to start by saying that we have to do small steps. So if we are not doing anything, just think of anything. Like maybe you're not a runner, and all of a sudden you want to run. You're not going to run a marathon tomorrow, right? So if you have been restricting, I don't want you to, and Jaclyn, please correct me if I'm wrong, but from a behavioral standpoint more so, I don't want you to jump all in. I want you to eat a little bit of something. Test it, right? Actually, in psychology, we call it exposure therapy. Small exposures, but staircase approach, very small steps at a time. It's very overwhelming. If I were to tell you, and you're not a runner to run a marathon today, or if you haven't been eating and you've been restricting, and all of a sudden you need to eat 3 meals and 2 snacks, that is very overwhelming. You're not going to do it. So why am I going to tell you that, right? So, and that's why I love Jaclyn's approach too, very realistic, right? We both take a very realistic approach, and we have to look at where you are, and then think, okay, this is where I am today. This is the goal, but we're not going to jump there. What's the first step? What can you actually do today that you're actually going to do? And start there.
I love that. I love that. I also think a huge component of it, and I just feel like it just doesn't do anyone any good to lie in situations like this. I mean, sometimes there's a good time and place for a tactical lie out here for it, but like not necessarily in this one. I think it's important to normalize the idea that weight gain may be a part of this process, and probably will be a part of this process, and perhaps more weight will be gained in the beginning of a recovery journey, and then it will normalize, it will even out, that weight may be lost. But when someone's really restricting, weight gain is a part of healing. So it is like important to just continue to make that a part of the conversation, and really coming from a place of compassion and understanding that so hard for people. It's so hard. I mean, during pregnancy, it was so hard for me too. You know, like it's just, you're not used to not feeling in control of your body when you're doing something, like even when you are healing, like even when you are actively seeking a healing recovery journey for yourself. I kind of hate that word journey, but I just used it. When you're actively seeking that, right? You still feel like you're not in control. Like it feels like something's happening to you that you're no longer hanging on so tight to, and it can be really hard. So I think it's just like what Rachel said, it's kind of like the one step at a time, but it's also thinking about, the normalizing some of the things that come along with that process.
Well, and also, I think weight gain, right, is such a triggering topic. And I don't know if you guys have seen this, but a lot of influencers have actually posted, I weigh more now than I did then, but look how good I look, for lack of a better word. It's like, I'm strong, I'm muscular, and like, that really, I think going through a pregnancy forced me. It was a forcing function for me. It wasn't happening by itself, people, let's just be honest. It was a forcing function for me to get real about my wellness, about my health. How healthy am I? Am I vital? Instead of just being healthy, I don't have a disease, but am I vital in creating life? And then on the other side of that, who am I? What does that look like for me? But definitely looking at weights is just the most triggering thing, I think, for a lot of us. But flipping that dialogue between, like, it's not about being skinny, it's about being muscular. And no one knows that number but you. You are the only person, you and your doctor, and by the way, F that doctor scale. It's never right. Like, we all know that anyways. It's all
And you also don't need to know it. No, you're throwing the scale away.
There's
You
no
don't
point.
need to be weighing yourself.
There's no point.
If your clothes are too tight or you don't feel good, that's different. But what I always say, I wish we could step on, if we're going to ask us, I wish we could step on the scale and say heavy, or I'd say strong.
That's a great tool for your toolbox.
I love that. Because who has
Sexy.
We've all stepped on the scale, felt good before we stepped on the scale.
Yeah.
And then that stupid number, boom, just went through that. The scale is telling you, like, think about it. You are like in this little machine. Dictate how you feel.
Isn't it also hearing more and more and more, like as we age and as our bodies do change, trying all these trends, like what you were talking about, and limiting ourselves, your body's healing, like it's part of your body. Like if eating, all right, I don't want to tell people to eat, but that's what fuels your body, right? Like that's fueling your body. So you might plateau, and you might stop losing weight or gaining weight or whatever because your body's confused and it's going to starvation mode. Sometimes I've heard with too many trendy diets. Like, what if you just did what your body wanted? Like, if I'm hungry, I eat. If I'm not, I don't. If I want French fries, I eat
That's a
French
great
fries.
question. Intuition. Intuitive.
Yeah, but not like a trendy way, not either. Like,
No, we don't have to hashtag.
I know.
Just intuitive.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's a movement. Everything's a movement.
Yeah.
But that's a great question because the yo-yoing back and forth on your body takes a real toll. Have you seen that?
Oh my God, so this is one of my favorite things to talk about because I feel like it's such an important thing for so many of us to keep in mind. The practice of weight cycling, which I feel like a lot of us would know as yo-yo dieting, that's what we used to call it in the good old days, Exactly. The yo-yo dieting is its own risk factor for cardiometabolic disease and for obesity, ultimately for obesity, as well as for anxiety and depression. So just on its own, just that behavior of repeatedly gaining and losing weight over time in a way that is significant, like a significant amount of weight loss on your body, takes a real toll. So that's why, I think we don't talk about that kind of statistic enough when we talk about the idea of eating to fuel ourselves, is because we need to keep in mind that ultimately you don't want to burn out that yo-yo string, right? Because it can make it that much harder for you to get a handle on all the other risk factors that come along with this over time. We don't want to be in a position of managing multiple chronic conditions when all we were doing was seeking change in the name of our health, right? That's kind of going to be depressing. You know what I mean? It's sort of a depressing thought. So it's something we should be talking about.
Q&A. Someone has a question. Someone's thinking about it. Maddie Gentile. Courtney, it's coming to you.
Well, let's dig into it. Thank you both so much. Fantastic panel. I've loved the way that both of you as professionals have talked about the way in which we talk to ourselves, but also the way in which women talk to women in general. So I think with just the way in which we're kind of coming up with these different biohacks of, okay, we don't do body positivity, we do body neutrality. Okay, we don't do tools, we do stress management to add that. We don't say no to food, we say what's working. I love all those things, but in the sense of then when you want to reframe something for the way you're talking to yourself and saying good job or bad job, and then on the second side of it, the way in which we talk to others, where unfortunately we live in a society where you go, oh my God, you look great. And that has to do with the physical outward appearance. So I'm just curious as professionals in this world, as what are other words you use? What are other ways in which you say, wow, you're doing so great to both yourself and to someone else, to try to change the way we talk to each other and ourselves.
As sisters, how can we encourage each other without saying the triggering stuff that we're all used to saying? And we don't mean harm by it, but it's that's a great question.
Just the dialogue of great words to use.
Yes.
Your eyes are glowing. You know what I mean? What are we saying these days?
Right. So such a great question, and it's actually in media. I just had a media interview today actually about this topic. What I want to say first is what you're talking about. Language is powerful, and words matter. So even if we are not saying something that we intend to be harmful, it can be, right? And that's why I love your question. Give me sample strings, right? What can I say to my friends? So the key is to not focus on body, weight, shape, and size. Anything else, I think, is on the table, right? So you're glowing, right? We're not necessarily talking about you lost weight, you gained weight, what's wrong, anything like that. We don't know what anybody is going through unless we ask them, and we're curious. We all have stories, and we don't see the stories, we just see this, right? But this could mean anything. So I think getting away from the commenting on body shape, size, and weight is the first thing. And then it can be anything, like I said, or either I said or you said, you're glowing, your eyes are shining. I love your new
moment for me to be these, when we speak in platitudes about so many things, there's you see people on someone mentioned intuitive eating, there's a lot of that stuff on social media. And so yes, I echo everything that Rachel just said. You really want to just know, when it comes, when you're triggered by a friend or a family member, hopefully the hope is that you are close enough to be able to say, what's up with that, or that really bothered me, or something else that you're able to have an actual conversation. And I know that that's not always the case, but the closeness does kind of matter. When you don't know someone, it can be really tricky to navigate, and it can be really like, and it is often the first thing that we think of is like, oh, you look great. Like that can be something that it's just like an easy one for so many of us to say. And also, you may be meaning something else. Like you could be like, I love your blazer. Like it could be something like that, and someone else interprets it some other way. So we can't like always be sitting around being our own language police. Like that's just not healthy for us either. I think the most important thing is to think about like when it's available to you, exactly what Rachel just mentioned about like speaking about the things that you know are positive, but it is always going to depend on the person, and I think that matters too. Like it does, we can't just always make one-size-fits-all assumptions about everyone.
What about phrases like you're so strong, or like you look so empowered, or something like that? The strength could be, many holes, like physical, mental.
I think that's right.
Totally.
Yeah. And I think too, Jaclyn, I know you guys said like usually the people that we're the closest to, but actually I often hear the people that we're the closest to are the ones saying the comments, right?
Yeah.
So just to be prepared for that as well. Like I work with my clients on, okay, you're gonna see your family, your mom, for instance, always comments, do you gain weight? How do you do really want seconds? Do you really want that much food? Do you really want to take it back?
You're so right.
No, but what I'm going to say, but what you said I love, because these are the people that we should be able to speak up to, but they just don't know any better to not talk, to say these things. And I think that's really a generational thing.
It is.
And I say to people all the time, like we can't blame our mothers for not knowing. We know more today than we did then. We didn't know that these things were harmful and hurtful, and we're kind of more sensitive these days in a way. But to have a script prepared, if you know that this family member that you're going to see is going to comment, be prepared. Have something ready to say. If it's like, I don't want to talk about that, let's change the topic. Or, thanks, Anne, change the topic. Or, my body is not up for discussion. Or whatever it is. But to be prepared, because that's when we get caught off guard, and that's when the anxiety and the stress and the overwhelming feelings happen, when we're not prepared for these things.
I can't improve on that answer. Leslie, Q&A.
Thanks so much for coming. It's been a really informative night. You guys have little babies. I have two bigger babies. They're 13 and 15, boy and girl. And, great kids, super active, work out with me sometimes, and, try to have, pretty healthy meals with them, although they do like their sweets and to indulge and things like that. What advice do you have in terms of saying things the right way, positively, to not restrict them in things that, they can have because they have a, fast metabolism right now and they can, and not feel like, sometimes my daughter will be like, oh, you're judging me. I'm like, no, you're just having your fifth cookie.
Who's counting?
Right, exactly. Who's counting? They're like, keep working out, that's great. So, what are your thoughts in terms of like balance and like how to approach it the right way?
It's so hard. It's so hard. Because like I'm also just thinking like I feel for you just in terms of like your grocery cost. You know what I mean? My head goes first. 2 teenagers. Like sounds expensive. I'm like, wait, I have something before. No, I feel like it can be so tricky, but I think it's so important to think about like what else is great about food, right? Like, and that can be, it may not be part of the conversation in that specific example that you gave, but it may be part of the conversation in other places, right? Like, so what is food doing in ways that it helps you fuel the other things in life that you enjoy doing? And I honestly, I feel like I find myself talking about this for kids and for adults too, because we don't talk about that enough for ourselves either, which is like, the cookie is amazing because it's not an every meal, every second of the day food. That's what makes cookies so great. On the other hand, like when it comes to teenagers, you do want to be more careful with that because you don't want to deny that food doesn't have moral value, right? Like food is not good or bad. It's just about the occasion, the time and place, the setting, and also the way that we tend to enjoy things like cookies, which is part of celebration, like part of, like it feels like an actual treat, right? Like it feels like something really enjoyable. But it's not necessarily something that like when I'm making this up that your daughter plays basketball, but I just made that up. Let's say she's going to play basketball, and you're like, you want to speak to her about like what are the food choices that are going to fuel that game. Then it's not necessarily about the cookie is like something bad or something that she shouldn't be having, or the fifth cookie is something that she shouldn't be having. It's really more about like what's going to help you get through that game. You know what I mean? So it's really more about like the functionality of what's the time, the place, the setting, the occasion, and focusing more on that when you can. And other than that, I just say like huge good luck to you. Because
Can I add over that? So, and just to add, I would say to take the focus away from the food, like back to the food, but rather more like the fuel, like you just said. And although I'm not a nutritionist or a dietitian, I'm going to give an example of what I'm doing with my son. I'm not saying it's right or wrong, but it's what I'm doing.
We'll be the judges of that.
But what I'm going to say is, it works for my family. Okay, fair enough. So being a psychologist, I'm sure you can imagine, and specializing in this area, I think everything. Like, how is this impacting my child? Everything I post on social media, like, you will not see me post. When I was pregnant, I think I posted like very rare pictures of like my belly. Yeah. But like you won't see me posting like half-naked outfits because, right? Because I know that there's people in my community that have a history of eating disorders or struggling, things like that. So I'm very careful with the way that I use my words, what I present to myself, but also to my children. So my son, to give you an example, if he wants a cookie, he gets cookie with dinner. I'm like, great, you want a cookie? Here it is. It's in a little bowl right now. I don't know, you're like looking at me weird.
I'm just thinking like, yes.
So he knows if he wants a cookie, he can have it with dinner. Usually he might take a bite of the cookie first, but then he will eat his dinner, and then he eats his cookie, or when he's done, this is amazing about children, when they are full, they stop eating. Yeah. Like literally, my son wanted ice cream on the way home from school the other day, and another child and dad were gonna go, and I'm like, all right, fine, let's go. Like whatever, if you don't need dinner, I guess we'll deal with it later. I'm telling you, he got 5 bites, and he's like, here, mommy, I'm done. Done. The ice cream is sitting in my freezer still. Same as Halloween candy. I have a bucket of Halloween sitting on the counter from Halloween, so candy just sitting there. If he ever wants it, it's there. If he doesn't want it, it's still there. One day I'll have to go through it and get rid of it, probably. But it's available if he wants it. And I think that's the key, is I'm teaching him that it's not off limits. Right. Exactly. If you want it, fine. Do you have to eat your dinner first? Not necessarily. Eat it a little bit, but I know he's going to eat his dinner too. Once again, not right or wrong. It's what works for me and my family. But I think it's just the way that we think about it. Like, we don't want to think like off limits, right? We don't want to think good or bad. We want to think this is going to fuel us to get through our dance class. This is going to fuel us to get through basketball or whatever. And I do that sometimes too. I'll be like, well, you know, so, like last night, you wanted more ice cream. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, let's just give it a minute and see if you still want it. And then afterwards, if he complains about a bellyache or something, I might be like, okay, you know, maybe you ate too much, you have a bellyache, you know? But like making that association that what I ate made me tired, or what I ate made me not be able to play my sports, or what I ate gave me a bellyache. Kind of making that association is really important.
I love that, actually. Food does have a function.
It does.
I mean, there is, like, you know, I play a sport and it's called DanceBody. Food is my fuel, and I need it, and I recently gave up, like, extra sugars. I'm not going to say all sugars, because that's just impossible, and it's ridiculous, and it's sad for everyone, so I'm not going to say all, but desserts, processed sugars, like crap that I don't need. Stuff that is not functional for my body, I just took it out because I needed to. But I do think drawing that comparison and leading by example. Like my mom would never just give us pizza, it was always pizza and apples. She would never just give us like, you know, Apple Jacks, it was Apple Jacks and Cheerios. Like I obviously different. Teenagers, I don't know, maybe all bets are off. I don't know these things. I only know that when I do think about kids, and I only have one, whatever. So, but what I do know about them is I have seen them boomerang around. So whatever they are shown, whatever the foundation is, whatever the ethos is in the home, whatever the value system is that your family has laid out, they will always come back to that. And they will feel that they don't feel great after 5 cookies, and hopefully they'll see food as a function for their body and food as fuel. But you know, that lends to playing a sport, dancing, gymnastics, like your food has to fuel those activities, and that is a direct line that can be abused or really nurtured and made into something that's really beautiful, so that you actually understand how your body works. I mean, we are not taught this in health classes in like middle school, which is ridiculous. How does your body work? How does your body process sugars? How does your body process caffeine? How does your body process alcohol? Your body functions a certain way on certain things. That's just what it does, and you're feeding it. So that doesn't answer anything, but that's what I think. All right, we have a question online. Emily Sindoni.
Jennifer wants to know any advice to help with emotional eating.
Yeah, that's a great one.
Yes.
Pitch it up, you take it.
I'm going to jump in.
Yeah.
It's a big question, actually. So emotional eating, if you don't know, is eating out of any emotion. It doesn't have to be just more of the negative emotions, but it can even be boredom. Lots of people eat when they're bored, or lots of people do this when you come home after a long day, just kind of ravenous, right? Or at the end of the day, like maybe if you have kids, the kids are asleep and all of a sudden participate in eating, it's filling something, it's serving a purpose, right? Eating serves a purpose, food serves a purpose, the behavior is serving a purpose. So I think the first thing is to identify that this is emotional eating, if that's what it is, and ask yourself what is going on right now. Am I bored? Am I sad? Am I angry? Am I happy? What's going on? And then, of course, this is like the Cliff Notes version of this answer. And then think of another tool, right? Eating can be a tool to cope with stress and cope with things, but it may not be working for you. Now, eating is not a bad coping tool, but if it is your only coping tool in your toolbox, it can be unhelpful. And or if it's causing you distress and you would want to stop it, of course. So think of another tool or another coping mechanism that you can do at that time. Now, I'm also going to say, though, that emotional hunger is harder to not do if you are also physiologically hungry. So if you are not eating every 3 to 4 hours, like Jaclyn said, or eating regularly throughout the day, and on top of that you're stressed, it is very hard to stop the emotional eating because you are physiologically hungry as well. So I actually just had a client today, we talked about this, and I had said the key is first to make sure you're not physiologically hungry and that you're physiologically and psychologically satisfied with your meals. If you're not, the emotional eating is also going to become harder to resist. But I want to get across that emotional eating is not a problem. We all do it at some point or another. But if it's your only coping mechanism or it is causing you distress, then it's something to work on.
Can I add one thing to this? Because I've talked a lot about this in Dressing on the Side, and I feel like it is such an important addition to what you just said, which is that I think a lot of us also, and I know that like emotional eating is absolutely real. We all do it. Literally, I feel like my entire career is built on the foundation of sour gummy worms. Like I really genuinely believe that is absolutely. So it's something. It's definitely something that's normal. Routinely feeling out of control when we eat is not, and that's when it's something to check in on. But I would also encourage this component of ruling out physiology before taking action to be such a critical component, because for anyone in this room and online who was raised on women's magazines, I feel like emotional eating, like a lot of us have been like gaslit into thinking that we're emotionally eating when actually we just need to be physiologically fueling ourselves a little bit better. So I feel like and the 3 things that I always hit on is drink, snack, sleep. So drink is rule out hydration before taking any action. A lot of us are walking around subclinically dehydrated, have 8 ounces to 16 ounces of water before doing anything else, right? Yeah. It's a snack. When is the last time I ate? Am I actually really hungry? Do I need to eat something? When we don't have a snack, eat something. And then the third one is rest or sleep. I talked about it in the book as sleep, but I've since expanded it to be rest because I think sleep is not always the solution for a lot of us. It is. It probably is. But it's not always available to all of us. So when it comes to rest, it's more about what feels restorative to you. Can you get outside for a 15-minute walk? Can you do something that makes you feel like a little bit more alert? Can you have a cup of coffee? Can you take a nap if that's available to you, right? There's other things to think about when it comes to rest. So physiology first, drink, snack, rest, and think about what to do next.
Like it.
Okay, just a follow-up question on the breakfast thing. So I love breakfast, but I can't eat it before a workout because I'll get very, I'm a runner and I'll change my body. Is it, so I always have something small to fuel the workout. If it's a long run, just like a banana. If it's a strength training, it's usually a rice cake with peanut butter, something like that, just to give me fuel. But then right after, I do have like a significant breakfast. Is that?
Love that.
I call that breakfast in 2 parts.
Like
part 1 and then part 2 look forward to.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that.
Okay. That cannot.
Extra credit.
Okay.
And what's funny is I thought you were going to say I can't eat before I work out, so I don't eat anything. So I love that you said that you have a lot of something because you know your body.
I've trained myself on having something.
Yeah.
Goodness.
Yeah, let's do that.
It's the energy. Your body has to burn something. If you have
nothing in your body. It's actually not helpful in any way, and also you're gonna binge at some point. So you have to have some community. People always ask me, well, what should I be eating before the workout? And I'm like, I get it. DanceBody is an intense workout, or if you're running, if you're doing some high intensity, it's intense, and you don't want to have something here. Trust, I'm the first one. So it's really like you kind of need 2 hours minimum to digest if you're going to eat something a little more. It's like, almond butter and banana, or like Greek yogurt and berries. Like, you will puke that up if you have that 30 minutes before the class, I guarantee you. So like, timing is really important. The type of food you're eating is really important. I know people that will have lots of protein before a workout. You're going to puke or shit. It's something so it has happened. So don't do that. Like, don't have a submarine sandwich right before you. You will die. Like, something will happen to you. It has to be something that I call it flat lining. You just have something to line your stomach and to use as pure energy. So like if you're a marathon runner, you just need pure energy to get through it, and then you can have the real fun, lettuce. Don't have it before a workout. PSA, do not have a salad before your high intensity workout. It's coming out. So it has to be sugars and carbs are highly effective, and they work. And they're flat lying, like a banana, almond butter. It's going to be flat lying, perfect. I'm not saying that that's all, but you definitely have to have something in your stomach. You got to have gas in the tank. And then afterward, you go full bore. Protein is really hard for the body to digest, right? So I am not a nutritionist, but I have a lot of research and development on my side, and I know a lot of women, and I know myself. So at least for me, like eggs before a workout, no bueno for me, because protein is a lot for the body to digest. It takes longer to digest. Like that for me does not work.
You know what is interesting about that is that what you're saying tracks. It totally tracks. I know.
Okay, good. I'm not a quack.
It totally tracks. But it's actually not the protein, it's the fat. So like for something like eggs,
yes, right.
What's happening is they have to cook in something. Like unless you're just eating like the hard boiled white rice, right? Like so that's
the fat.
The fact that it slows down the rate of digestion and absorption in your stomach, so it's literally just sitting. It takes longer to literally go through your digestive tract. So that would be the one thing that I would avoid. And also, great point about the salad. I always say like if there's things to avoid before a workout, it's really like cruciferous veggies like broccoli,
rough fish.
High fat foods. That would be everything.
Yes.
Yes.
Is there something about timing post-workout that's like, what's the most you should go? And, because sometimes what happens is, and this is where the whole thing about planning and timing, that really hit hard for me. Because I don't have clients in the morning, but I have a limited window to train. And then sometimes I fuck up the timing, and I'm starving, but I have clients that I can't eat, so then I'll eat after the client, it's like an hour or something.
There's little protein balls and energy balls.
So
the ideal timing to eat after a workout for muscle building, for lean body mass building is 30 minutes after a workout.
Okay.
That's ideal. If you can't make it, I wouldn't go longer than 2 hours.
Okay.
So like that gives you kind of a window. It's not like the be all and all, but it is like if that's something that you're actively focusing on is promoting lean body mass, then you kind of want to get something in a combo of that protein and fiber 30 minutes after within that window.
Okay.
But ultimately 2 hours after is going to be.
Yeah, by then I'm eating my elbow.
Right. That can also be, and we were talking about this right before we started actually, is that if you can't sit down and have a whole meal, have something, right? Like in between sessions, I get it. I run out quickly and I take a bite of something and I run back in because I can't wait.
I can't think.
Right, yeah. That's so cranky. Yeah. Like, I
Critical
agree.
window, that's protein drinks saved my life, because there's a critical window where I know I'm not sitting down for a meal and like I'm gonna get sidetracked by like 2 things, maybe for 2 hours. So it's always like something is always better than nothing. The second you get to eat, you're eating whatever is in front of you, which we all know ain't gonna be good. What else we got? Anything else online? We good?
Yeah, we're good here.
Okay, yeah. Right here. You, bam.
Thank you. Thank you guys for coming. It's been very informative. And as a girl in their 20s, I'm trying to really soak it all in. One question I had is around sleep that you guys all emphasize is very important. Obviously, trying to get to 7 to 9 hours of ideal sleep time. But what are your tips that you've seen best practice, most useful for like falling asleep? There are myriad of reasons why you can't fall asleep. What have you found most helpful?
sorry, you like
Yeah, no, go ahead, you start.
You can go.
Fine, I'll go. The best thing that I have, and granted, this is not my area of expertise, but like the best thing that I feel like is the greatest advice that I wish I had taken like at a younger age is that when you can't fall asleep, don't stay in bed. Like don't lay there like trying and being like, yeah, and like do what I would do and just like look at the clock and be like, now I'm only getting 3 hours. You know what I mean? Like I'm just thinking about like our lives going on. Like getting out of that environment is so helpful for like just take yourself out, because then you start having these negative feelings around bedtime, around bed. It feels anxiety provoking, and that just makes it that much worse. I'll let you go.
Yeah.
There.
No, I'm so glad you said that.
Right.
Right. Because also think about it. If you're just laying in bed, what are you doing? You're thinking about the fact that you're not sleeping, right? And then you start counting sheep and doing all these weird things, right? It's not gonna work. So removing yourself from that environment, going to like another room, try to minimize the lights though. You know, if you wanna like lay on the couch and like flip through a magazine, like something very, you know, not making you think a lot, so to say. Another thing, a lot of people have sleep difficulties because of this, right? The racing thoughts, right? Or the to-do list that's in your head. Oh my God, I have to do this tomorrow, that's tomorrow, that. So I love brain dumps. That's what I call them. So a brain dump is literally what it says. It is literally whatever you're thinking, put it down on a piece of paper. So many people are thinking at night, I have to do this tomorrow, do this tomorrow, do that tomorrow. Guess what? Your brain is going to keep hitting repeat until you actually do it, or until you get it on paper or in your notes app or something like that. So have a notebook next to your bed or use the notes app. Dump whatever thoughts you're having. Oftentimes also they're just thoughts, but if it's like a to-do list, write it down. Thoughts are just thoughts. They're not facts. So it's important to keep that in mind too, but if you need to, write down those thoughts, get them out of your head. So, and then to add to that, I'm gonna say one more thing that's a good tip. Do something relaxing before you go to bed. You cannot expect, like for instance tonight, we're all gonna go home and be like wired, right? You're not, if you lay in bed, you're not gonna fall asleep, sorry. You need to do something relaxing to calm the mind, quiet the mind, bring the body back down. So some kind of relaxation technique, like a breathing exercise like we did before, something like that. You can do even laying in bed, maybe reading a little bit, minimize your lights, right? Minimize the time on your phone. I know we all do it, but try to minimize that or lower the, the light on your phone. But something relaxing is going to encourage good sleep and tell your body and brain it's time to slow down.
Yes. I have a question for you actually. As a dietitian, do you recommend certain supplements like magnesium or stuff that's like missing from or like is very much required for a female to take? Also to your point of like, am I bipolar? I feel like a lot of people going through the eating disorder recovery as well are victims of hypothalamic amenorrhea, which is a loss of your period. So how do you get your body back to sort of secreting those hormones or like getting back to vital health?
So in general, I don't recommend most supplements. The caveat is for people at various stages of life. So pregnancy and trying to conceive, that's a really critical time where supplementation is necessary. But on the whole, I tend to avoid supplements. And the reason for that is because most of us can get everything that we need from creating a more nutrient-dense eating pattern. That being said, I will occasionally recommend things when I feel like someone is really missing like a key nutrient, but I really need to know like the ins and outs of their everyday eating patterns in order to recommend something or identify something that seems like it could be questionable. I am hearing so many things online about magnesium. This is one. I literally just posted something about it the other day because I feel like I'm hearing about it all the time. Yes, most of us are not eating enough magnesium. That's definitely true, but the degree to which we're deficient, like magnesium deficiency, is not really a known thing. We might actually have insufficient intake, but the degree to which we could actually measure that, you can't measure magnesium. You can take magnesium on a blood test, but it doesn't reflect anything to do with your magnesium status. That's a really important thing, and so many things that are out there are very much like that. So another one I've been hearing a lot about is like cortisol. Like this is like a new buzzword. It's like we all have raging cortisol. No, we don't. It's just a hormone. It's fine. Like we all have it, and we need it to live. Like you need some cortisol. It's good. Like it's good for you. You're alive. It's good for you. So like there's a lot of supplements that are promising a lot of things, and the reason for that is that it's an unregulated area of the industry. So like anyone can say anything on a supplement, and all they have to say is in a tiny little print at the bottom, these statements have not been evaluated by the FDA. And
and that's it. So when it comes to any type of supplements, like my number one tip for people in this room, like if you are thinking about choosing a supplement, is to look for ones that have only the ingredients that you are personally looking for to be in that supplement, but more importantly than that, are they third-party tested? Meaning, were they sent to a lab? Did the company take it upon themselves to send this supplement to a lab to make sure that what they're saying is in the supplement is actually in there?
Is that on the bottle? Does that say that? It says third-party tested?
It won't. It will say either NSF for sport certified, that's one, consumerlab.com is another, and USP is another. HMA, for example.
PhD.
No, it is honestly so
that you like know for a fact that is doing that well.
Yes. So one that I love, I've worked with them before, but I don't work with them now, but I only worked with them because I love them, is called Life Extension. They some of the Nature Made products, like some of the chewable Nature Made products, will be USP certified, and there's this other one that I'm thinking of.
I've had Now Foods before.
There's a lot of theirs are also NSF for sport certified. The kind of like the greatest thing is you can actually download the free NSF for Sport app, and then you can check like if you're in a store and you want to know if something is verified. That's like a quick and easy way to know.
So just if it's in Whole Foods, it doesn't make it.
No, that's like that. Totally, I know.
But what are the standards? What is going on? How are we supposed to navigate this? All right, well, that was, guys, this is, honestly, we could go on and on. I'm starving. I know you're starving.
I'm losing cortisol.
I mean, yeah, we're all functioning on cortisol right now. I love you all so much. I honestly am so proud and happy that you all made it tonight. This is amazing. It was a rainy night. You guys made it. I'm so happy you made it. And Dr. Rachel Goldman, Jaclyn London, you guys are simply second to none. You are class acts, and I think we all are walking away with some amazing knowledge tonight. Thank you guys so much for keeping it